Okay, Mekohanan everyone, welcome to another review. This is my review for Madam Web, starring, Dakota Johnson. Is it? Yeah, Dakota Johnson. Now Isabella Merced, whom I know from Dora and the Lost City of Gold or something. That was a fun watch. And I forgot the black girl's name. I think it's, I think it's Celeste is the first name. But she was in Ghostbusters Afterlife, and she's going to be in the upcoming Frozen Empire. And then something Sweeney, okay, I don't, Emma Roberts is in there, and then the guy who plays Uncle Ben, I know him too, but I forgot his name. But okay, before I go on with the review, I want to preface something quickly, and it relates to this film, or rather what I'm going to say about it. But okay, hold on. There is a movie, I think it's like a 1998 film, 97, 98, called Dangerous Beauty, and it stars Catherine McCormick, Oliver Platt, Rufus Sewell, Jacqueline Bisset is in it. You know what, I think Naomi Watts is also in it, a little bit of it. She comes in like near the middle end or something. I'll say this, Catherine McCormick, she plays a courtesan. This takes place in Italy. I believe it's Venice. Okay, and it's during that time, during the time of the courtesans, which are streetwalkers, lady of the night, and they're very educated and all that. That's what kind of separates them from your typical hooker. And let's just say this: Catherine McCormick was on trial for being a courtesan, and a very successful one. Very, it was very lucrative for her to be in that business. She was very good, let's say. All manner of people, all manner of men would come to her. Okay, popes, scholars, everyone. Now, when she was under scrutiny on trial, Rufus Sewell was defending her, and she was going to be hung, or her life was on the line for this. And Rufus Sewell condemned himself by saying, well, you condemn her, you condemn me as well, because I have been bewitched by her and all that, and so be it. So basically her fate and Rufus Sewell's fate are tied. So he said, but look, I am not alone. Okay, all of you men, who have, what was the word? All of you men who have broken your vows of marriage, right? To be with this woman and just been with her and slept with her and everything. Rise up, stand with me. Let just all you men stand up. And eventually, when it came down for the sentencing, one man stood up, right? And the judge, which was like a pope, said, well, sir, do you have something to add? I am standing. And then Rufus Sewell says, yes, stand, come on. All of a sudden, one by one, all these men in the courtroom started standing because they all slept with her, and they all stood up. And then Rufus Sewell says, well, your grace, to the priest, another priest in there that's up there as the judge too. Perhaps there's one more who would like to stand. And that pope, he looked at him and said, he couldn't believe it. Okay, so I will end that story there. Now let me get into the Madam Web, and I'll say why I brought that up. Now, Madam Web, I know that, well, okay, I won't start with that. I'll just say you have Madam Web, who is played by Dakota Johnson, I think her name was Cassandra, right? She's a paramedic, and she was born under unusual circumstances. Her mother was in like the jungle somewhere, and she was accompanied by a man named Ezekiel, and she's after this spider, but he's also after it too for the power, and his intentions were not revealed until when she found it pretty early on in the film. It's shown as a flashback, and basically he killed everyone, even shot the mother, so she's on the verge of dying, who's pregnant by the way, and then he took off with the spider in the jar. All of a sudden, the savages, living in there, not really savages, but the people living there, the denizens there, brought her to this cave and let the spider bite her and then put her in some water, and there's supernaturalism involved, and then she was born, right? So then we jump into future now, 2003 I believe, right? Because it's it's an origin story, and the whole thing is this Ezekiel guy, he has this premonition of these 3 girls that are going to kill him like 10 years from the future, and they all develop powers. They all become like a version of a Spider Woman, and Madam Web, or Cassandra, whom her partner, her paramedic, she's a paramedic, and her partner is Uncle Ben, right? Spider-Man's uncle. And then she foresaw the death of those 3 women because they happened to all be there in the train all at once. There's, like I said, there's supernaturalism involved. So she gets them off the train, kind of like Final Destination style. And that guy, Ezekiel, he sees this, and now the whole thing is them trying to elude him, and he's trying to come after the girls and kill them before they get a chance to kill them before they have a chance to kill him, in the future. And Ezekiel has some woman, that has access to all the monitors and stuff all around the city, and helping him out, and she's being paid lucratively, right? So that's basically the plot. And I thought this film was okay to good at best. I don't think it deserved all the hate, and now I feel bad because Dakota Johnson saying something like, I'm not gonna star in anything like this again, and then the whole thing, her going on the press tour with Sony and some of the directors, and she's just not very enthusiastic about it, which it's understandable if everyone's kind of hating on her for that. But also in this article I read said, but Sony also blames her because, say the movie was exactly the same, but it was successful at the box office, then she would be praising it and attributing some of the success to herself, which of course that's fine. But the issue is, I think the people, with their criticism and basically it's like they're bullying her. She's being like bullied, I feel, just like what's happening nowadays when they don't like a film, they bully the people involved in it and making fun of them and stuff, and I think they shouldn't do that. That prevents like a sequel from happening. I would love to see a sequel, to Madam Web. I think that would be great, because I think people were pretty upset because they never don any kind of costumes. They don't get their powers. The only real power you see comes from Madam Web near the end when she utilizes her being in multiple places at one time, which I thought was pretty cool. And of course her ability to kind of foresee the future and know when to dodge and roll and stuff like that, and when to get away. I thought that was pretty neat. This separates itself from your typical formula of superhero films where you have one supervillain and then a superhero or superheroes or a couple villains, whatever, and they fight and they have powers. This is different because they have this one guy, Ezekiel, who has powers, and these girls are defenseless right now. Even Madam Web, whose powers, she doesn't have the physicality of the spiders. It's just mostly the being able to foresee the future. She doesn't have super strength. She doesn't climb on walls or anything. So in a way, she's kind of defenseless, except for that little edge of foreseeing the future. And she's guiding these girls, away from the danger. So it was like a cat and mouse thing. So I kind of enjoyed that because it was a different thing, a different format, and refreshing from all the other stuff, And same thing with like Morbius. I thought that was pretty cool too. And the two Venom films are okay. Although I didn't like how they the second one, I think they took the relationship thing, friendship thing with Eddie Brock and Venom a little bit too far, but I'm not going to talk about that film. I still enjoyed it too, both of them to a certain degree. But it falls in that league where they're just maybe mediocre to like okay at best. I personally thought this one, Madam Web, and same thing with those other ones, were, good to okay, and I thought this was a good one. Because it was different. Now, my complaints, though, and it's pretty much my same kind of complaints that I have for even the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. I think it wasn't so much an issue near the end, but especially in the beginning when they were all together. I thought the girls talked too much. They were just too much talking, I thought, and because they're trying to feed off each other's lines for comedy. Comedic purposes, how they kind of do that, so they talk too much, But in the Tom Holland Spider-Man, that's absolute worst. Just don't talk so much. Just say what you have to say, no jokes. Just talk, very little. So they started talking a little bit too much. I've seen it twice now. This movie, this Madam Web, I enjoyed it a bit more the second time around. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, this is actually pretty good. I would say it's okay. And then I saw all this hate, and I said, oh, just like with Damsel, that doesn't deserve all that hate. I thought Damsel was actually pretty good, and I have my review for that as well. So I think the problem is nowadays with, they look at the professional reviewers like IGN and whatever, the more professional reviewers, and I guess now you can kind of consider, the YouTubers that are big channels. They're somewhat professional, even though really they were just lucky to have all those people, but they're just regular people like us. They're not, like a real big company. They're just a regular person like you and I, just with several 100K subscribers, 1 million subscribers or so, right? But they hear like one bad review from the professionals, and then they jump on that bandwagon and try to capitalize on that, and they start saying bad things, and they all say kind of like the same thing. Thumbnails, this is crap, this movie's the worst, or it's shit, this is a fail, Madam Web, and they make a funny face in their thumbnails. But I'm sure when they saw it deep down, they didn't think it was nearly that bad. They probably didn't like it as much, but they would watch it again, or they say, oh, this is kind of cool, and if you watch it again for what it is, right? And that's, I'm going to get to my point again. What I was just saying, a minute ago, was that I think people are reviewing the movies not for not for what they for what it is, but for what they were expecting it to be, what they want it to be, because maybe the trailers kind of showcased it like they're in costume, and you saw that, but like maybe they thought near the end they're going to be in costume and they're going to fight, or they're all going to get their powers at the end. They're saving that for the sequel. That's why I said this is a different format, but now there's probably not going to be a sequel because of you people, and leading to the bad, box office, numbers, right? And not making a lot of money for a sequel. But I think if the sequel would have happened, you guys would have enjoyed it. That you would have really enjoyed. But this one, I found it to be enjoyable and refreshing. You need to watch it again. Keep the whole cat and mouse thing in mind. Probably something more in common with Friday the 13th film, with the group of teens running away from Jason, that type of format, although they're not getting slaughtered though one by one, but that sort of format, because they have to survive to get their powers, because in the future, right, they become superheroes. They become a variation of a Spider-Woman, led by Madam Web, right? So I think that's the thing. So for me, aside from, you know, some of the annoying bits at the beginning where they're talking too much, you know, I think they shouldn't talk so much. And even throughout, still, they're just like small moments. Maybe they'll say something stupid, but it's really not bad and not enough to, you know, make the movie a fail. Okay, to me, a crap shit film, and I should have brought it out because this, I really mean this. I have it back there somewhere actually. Something like Barbarian Queen 1, Barbarian Queen 2, Troll number 2, not 1. I actually thought Troll 1 was actually pretty good, but Troll 2 was crap, right? I'll even go so far as to say even Deathstalker 1 was really not that good. It's kind of a bad fantasy B cheesy direct-to-video shit Conan ripoff, okay? So, but Deathstalker 2 I thought was actually pretty good. You know, it was a different tongue-in-cheek version with John Terlesky playing the role and not Richard Hill in the first one. And it was John Terlesky that took over the role of Deathstalker, and Gabrielle Monique was in there as well. But so that's the thing. I think if people would just review it for what the film is and not what they expect it to be, or not from basing it off of other people's negative reviews, they would enjoy things a lot more. That's why back in the 80s, 90s, when regular people, couldn't post their thing up and rip on the film, you know, and that influences the you know, whether people are going to go see the film, and it compounds and more people make bad reviews for it. You know, just review it, and that's what I think. Just kind of review it for what it is, and maybe don't be so mean, you know, because poor, you know, just like with Amber Heard, people took it too far. I want to microwave you when you're a baby and kill you, and so they should just stop that. And then they're hating on, you know, Dakota Johnson and her film, and look how bad you made her feel. So I know the people at Sony and the actors and all that, they're not going to see this review, but I just want to say, if they were to see this, don't listen to those reviews. Just go on with that sequel, or just put them all together from the Spider-Verse, Venom, Madam Web, and those Spider Women, Morbius. You know, put them all together. Carnage, or for the next Spider-Man film, maybe introduce them, even if some parts are bigger than others. Just start to introduce them so that we can see a continuation of the Madam Web character, because I liked Dakota Johnson as Madam Web. I thought she was pretty good at that. The three girls, aside from them talking too much, I think were decent, pretty good. So just keep them and go on with this, because it does connect. You can see that. That's why they have Uncle Ben. So please. And the reason, and this is why, when the DVD, why I brought up that Dangerous Beauty reference example, because I want all of you guys who deep down inside actually think that it's actually okay or not so bad. You don't have to think it's a masterpiece, but think that it's okay or mediocre, as well as those that thought it was pretty good. Stand up, buy the physical copy of it on Blu-ray to show support, so they can, you know, the people at Sony can see that, okay, it's a box office failure, but we're making money off of the Blu-ray, you know, and it will encourage them to continue with these characters. At the very least, if not a sequel, then put them in the future, you know, include them in the MCU and put them in, you know, the next Spider-Man or something, or just put all those guys together, and also the whole thing with Vulture appearing at the end of Morbius. Please, let's get back to that too. Let's, you know, maybe, I don't know, we're trying to start like a Sinister Six type, or was it Sinister Six or Insidious Six, or I think they were called Sinister Six, right? The Sinister Six. Was that? Yeah, I think the Sinister Six. I think maybe they were trying to go with that. So please continue with that. Okay, so my score out of 10, I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Now keep in mind too, I do rate in quarters, and I score in quarters. So I mean, so for example, like 7.25, 7.5, 7.75, and then an 8. But I would give it just solid, generous or solid 7 out of 10. Okay, so check it out again. abandon all, you know, expectations on what you thought and just see it for what it is. Okay, it's not a masterpiece, it's not great, and of course it's not perfect, but just see it for what it is. You can check your brain at the door when you watch it. Grab a popcorn and a beer or something, or eat some ribs or something, and just watch it and enjoy it. You don't have to think too hard. Very simple tale. And I know Ezekiel is not the greatest complex villain, but that's okay. Okay, so that's my review. 7 out of 10. Okay.